Want to see more? Unclasp it, whispered the alien girl. HFY Max was leaning against the cold, steel wall of the Earth Galactic Trade Hub when he first saw her. The bustling port was busy, as always. Humans, aliens, and travelers from distant stars mingled in a strange harmony, each lost in their own worlds. But Max had seen it all before. He was no longer impressed by the glowing ships or the strange alien marketplaces. He had fought in wars, negotiated peace, and even saved a few planets. But he never expected to meet someone like her, an alien girl whose presence felt different, almost like a force of nature. She was standing near the edge of the market square, her eyes scanning the crowd. She looked young, maybe no older than 16 by human standards. Her skin was a pale green, almost glowing under the station's artificial lights. Max thought it was the kind of green he'd seen in bioluminescent plants on a distant moon, soft but intense. Her hair was a mixture of silver and black, flowing like liquid mercury. Despite the crowd around her, she seemed alone, detached from the chaos. Max's instincts kicked in. He'd learned long ago to never trust anything that didn't fit into the usual patterns, especially in a place like this. But something about her made him curious. There was a calmness in her movements, a purpose that was different from the usual fear or greed he saw in other aliens. She wasn't looking for a deal or an escape. He pushed himself off the wall and started to make his way toward her. As he walked, he kept his hand close to the sidearm at his belt, just in case. It was an old habit, one he couldn't shake. The girl's eyes locked onto his as he approached. For a second, Max thought she had read his thoughts or maybe even felt his intentions. Her expression remained unreadable, but there was a flicker of something in her gaze, something he couldn't place. "Can I help you?" Max asked, his voice low but firm. His tone was the same one he used when dealing with uneasy situations. The kind of tone that made it clear he wasn't here to make friends. The girl didn't speak immediately. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if considering something. She was taller than most humans, her height giving her an almost regal presence. Then finally she spoke, her voice soft but confident. "I need your help," she said. Max raised an eyebrow. He'd heard that before. Everyone needed help. That didn't mean he was about to offer it to just anyone. "Help with what?" he asked, crossing his arms over his chest. He didn't let his guard down. He wasn't about to make the mistake of assuming she was anything but a potential threat. "I'm looking for something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something important." Max's eyes narrowed. There were 1,000 things that could fit that description. He had heard many similar words in his career, always followed by dangerous missions or a price too high to pay. But there was something in her tone that stopped him from dismissing her outright. "What's your name?" he asked. "Tessa," she replied. Her eyes lingered on his face, and for a moment Max felt as if she was trying to read him. "Well, Tessa," Max said, "you don't look like you're from around here. What kind of help are you looking for?" Tessa glanced around the busy station before leaning closer. She lowered her voice, making sure no one could overhear. "I'm looking for an artifact, something my people have been guarding for centuries, but I'm not the only one who wants it." Max's curiosity piqued. "What kind of artifact?" Tessa hesitated, her gaze flicking to the crowd before returning to him. "I don't know how to explain it. It's not like anything you've seen before. It's something that could change everything." Max didn't like the sound of that. He had dealt with too many things that could change everything in his life, and most of them weren't good. He studied her face, trying to figure out if she was lying. But there was an earnestness in her eyes, a rawness that made him think she wasn't playing some game. "What's so special about it?" Max asked, his voice growing more cautious. Tessa stepped back slightly, glancing over her shoulder again. This time, Max could see the hint of fear in her eyes. She was being watched. He could feel it. "I can't explain it all here. But I need someone I can trust. Someone who understands what it's like to be caught between two sides. Someone who can help me retrieve it," Tessa said, her voice barely audible. Max paused, sensing the weight in her words. He wasn't sure why, but he felt an odd pull toward her. Maybe it was because she didn't look like she belonged to the usual crowd of smugglers, bounty hunters, and diplomats that walked the station. Or maybe it was the way she spoke, the sincerity in her voice. "All right," Max said finally. "I'll help. But I need more than that to go on. What's this artifact? And who's after it?" Tessa's eyes met his, and for a second the world around them seemed to disappear. She took a deep breath, then spoke in a whisper as if the words themselves were dangerous. "The artifact is a weapon." A weapon that's been hidden away for thousands of years. It's not just a tool, it's alive, and whoever controls it can control the galaxy. Max's heart skipped a beat. He had heard stories, of course, weapons of unimaginable power lost to time. But he had always thought they were just myths, legends meant to scare children and travelers. But Tessa's face was serious. She wasn't joking. "Who's after it?" Max asked again, his voice low and tense. "A faction from my homeworld," she replied, her tone grim. "They know I'm here. They won't stop until they find it." Max considered the situation for a moment. He didn't like getting involved in galactic power struggles, but there was something about Tessa that made him feel like this wasn't just another mission. The weight of her words pressed on him, and despite his instincts telling him to walk away, he couldn't. He gave a slow nod. "All right, I'll help you, but we do this on my terms." Tessa smiled, a small, almost relieved smile. It wasn't much, but it was enough to show that she trusted him. "I can do that," she said softly. As Max turned to lead the way, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he couldn't predict. He had no idea what Tessa's mission truly entailed, but he could sense one thing for sure. The artifact she sought was no ordinary weapon, and the people after it were just as dangerous. And as the two of them disappeared into the crowded streets of the station, Max had a feeling he wouldn't be able to walk away, even if he wanted to. Max led Tessa through the winding corridors of the Earth Galactic Trade Hub, his eyes scanning the crowds. The station was alive with the hum of voices and the buzz of traders negotiating deals. But despite the bustle around them, Max couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Tessa was on edge, and her quiet presence only seemed to make the atmosphere more tense. They passed through a narrow alley between two large cargo bays. The smell of synthetic food and alien spices filled the air, but Max barely noticed. His mind was focused on Tessa and the cryptic mission she had asked for his help with. The weight of her words from earlier still echoed in his head. "A weapon that's alive." It sounded insane, but there was a certain truth in her eyes that told him it wasn't just another tall tale. Max had seen a lot in his time, and though he'd never encountered something like what she described, he knew better than to dismiss her out of hand. "Where are we going?" Tessa asked, her voice breaking the silence. She had been quiet since they left the market, her face a mask of uncertainty. Max paused and glanced back at her. "I'm taking you to a safe place. We can talk there." Tessa's eyes darted nervously. "You trust me?" Max raised an eyebrow. He didn't trust many people, but something about Tessa made him feel as though he should. It wasn't just her sincerity. It was the quiet desperation in her voice, the fear in her eyes whenever she spoke about the artifact. "I don't trust anyone completely," Max replied, "but you seem like you're telling the truth, and right now I have no reason to doubt you." Tessa nodded slowly, but the unease didn't leave her face. Max led her through a hidden door at the back of an old merchant's stall, into a small, dimly lit room. The door clicked shut behind them with a soft thud. Inside, the room was sparsely furnished. There was a small table in the center and a few chairs scattered around. Max sat at the table, gesturing for Tessa to take a seat across from him. She did, but she seemed restless, shifting in her chair as though something was gnawing at her. Max leaned forward, his hands folded in front of him. "So, tell me everything." Tessa took a deep breath, as though she had been waiting for this moment. Her green eyes met his, and for the first time since he'd met her, Max saw something other than fear or uncertainty. There was resolve in her gaze, something steely and determined. "The artifact isn't just a weapon," she said, her voice steady. "It's the key to the survival of my people. It's not something we use lightly. It's something we've guarded for thousands of years." Max stayed silent, letting her continue. He could feel the weight of her words pressing down on the room, making the air feel thick. "We are the last of an ancient race," Tessa went on, her voice growing softer, as though she were speaking to herself. "Once, we were a great civilization, spanning several star systems. We had technology and knowledge that made us the most advanced species in the galaxy, but over time we became too powerful, too proud. We began to see other races as beneath us, and we started wars, many wars." Max didn't interrupt, though he felt his stomach tighten. He had heard stories of ancient civilizations falling because of their own arrogance, but hearing it firsthand was different. The weight of it settled in his chest. "Eventually, we destroyed ourselves," Tessa continued, her eyes distant. "The wars, the betrayal, it all led to our downfall. We are not many anymore. We've been scattered across the galaxy, hiding in the shadows. But the artifact, the weapon, it was created to protect us. It's our last hope. Max frowned. If it's so important, why are you hiding it? Tessa's gaze darkened and she looked down at her hands. The artifact is dangerous, too dangerous. We sealed it away in one of our own, hoping it would never be found. But there are those who seek it. Others who believe that if they can control it, they will be able to wield its power and bring back the glory of our people. The problem is, the artifact cannot be controlled. Max leaned back in his chair, processing what she had said. He knew that power like that could corrupt anyone, even the noblest of leaders, but something about her story felt real. He could see the genuine fear in her eyes. "You're not the only one looking for it, are you?" Max asked, his voice low. Tessa shook her head. "No. There are others, a faction from my homeworld, a group of radicals who believe that restoring our civilization means conquering others. They will stop at nothing to get it. And they're already here. They know I'm on Earth, and they know what I'm after." Max's jaw tightened. He had dealt with enough factions and radicals in his life to know how far they would go to get what they wanted. If what Tessa was saying was true, then these people would be a serious threat, not just to her, but to everyone. "They won't stop, will they?" Max asked. "No," Tessa replied, her voice firm. "They won't, but we can't let them have it. The artifact must be kept hidden, locked away where no one can reach it if they get their hands on it." She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Max could see the pain in her eyes. This wasn't just about saving her people anymore. It was about saving the galaxy from a power that could destroy everything. The artifact wasn't just a weapon, it was a ticking time bomb. "So, what do you need from me?" Max asked, his voice steady. Tessa hesitated before answering. "I need someone who can help me find the artifact, someone who can keep me safe from those who are looking for it, and I need someone who won't be tempted by its power." Max stood and paced the room, thinking. He had helped plenty of people in the past, but this was different. There was too much at stake. But at the same time, something about Tessa made him want to protect her. She wasn't like the others who had come to him for help, looking for a quick solution. She was genuine, scared, and determined. "I don't know if I'm the right person for this," Max said, finally stopping his pacing and turning to face her. "But I'll help you. I can't promise you I'll be perfect, but I can promise I won't let anything happen to you." Tessa's eyes softened, a look of relief washing over her face. She stood and stepped toward him, her hand outstretched. "Thank you." Max took her hand, feeling the weight of her gratitude, but deep down, he knew this wasn't just about helping one person anymore. It was about stopping a galactic threat, and that threat was closing in fast. "Let's get to work," Max said. The moment the words left his mouth, a loud bang echoed from outside the room. Max's hand instinctively went to his sidearm, Tessa's face drained of color. "They've found us." Max grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the small escape hatch in the corner of the room. "We need to move now." As they scrambled into the narrow passage, Max couldn't shake the feeling that they were already too late. The danger was here, and it was only going to get worse from here on out. Max moved quickly, guiding Tessa through the narrow, dimly lit corridor beneath the station. The alarm had blared the moment they entered, signaling that someone, or something, had breached the security perimeter. Footsteps echoed behind them, growing louder as the sound of heavy boots pounding the metal floors grew nearer. Max didn't look back. He could hear Tessa's hurried breaths beside him, her fear palpable in the air. But he couldn't afford to stop. Not yet. They reached a small door at the far end of the hallway. It was a maintenance exit, hidden from the main security checkpoints, but it wouldn't keep them safe for long. Max quickly punched in a code on the door's control panel. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a darkened maintenance bay. "Go," Max barked, pushing Tessa inside before stepping through himself. He slammed the door shut behind them, the sounds of pursuit muffled on the other side. Tessa collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. Max's mind raced. He had faced danger countless times before, but something about this felt different. The urgency, the weight of Tessa's mission, and the mysterious artifact, it was all too much to ignore. He scanned the maintenance bay. It was empty, save for a few old crates and a stack of spare parts. The flickering lights overhead cast eerie shadows along the walls. Max motioned for Tessa to stay low and moved toward the far side of the room where a small door led to an emergency staircase. "We need to get to the lower levels. If we can lose them in the lower docks, we can figure out our next move," Max said, his voice low but steady. Tessa nodded, her eyes fixed on him. There was something in her gaze now, a quiet desperation. It was clear that the threat wasn't just about the artifact. It was about her survival, too. She had trusted him, and now he had to live up to that trust. As they moved toward the emergency exit, Tessa suddenly spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's inside me." The artifact, the weapon, I never wanted it to be this way. Max turned to look at her, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean you're telling me it's inside you?" Tessa nodded slowly. "The artifact, it's not just a weapon, it's alive, it's bonded with my DNA. The power it holds, it can't be unlocked by anyone else. But it's not just something we use to fight, it's part of us. My people created it to protect us, to protect the galaxy, but they never knew the cost." Max couldn't understand. He had heard of sentient weapons before, but this was something else entirely. A weapon bound to a person's very being. He shook his head, trying to wrap his mind around the concept. "But why?" Max asked, his voice filled with confusion. "Why would they put something like that inside you?" Tessa closed her eyes as if the memory pained her. "Because they didn't trust themselves. My people, they were too powerful, too consumed by their own arrogance. The artifact was a last resort. It could either save us or destroy us." Max took a step closer to her, his voice softening. "And you're saying the artifact can destroy everything?" Tessa looked up, her eyes locked onto his. "If it's activated the wrong way, yes. It has the power to wipe out entire fleets, entire worlds. It's been dormant inside me for so long, but now it's waking up, and I don't know how to stop it." Max's heart sank. This wasn't just about stopping a dangerous faction. It was about stopping something far more unpredictable. "We have to get it out of you," Max said, his voice low. "We have to find a way to separate it from you before it's too late." Tessa shook her head, her eyes filled with fear. "It's not that simple. The artifact is part of me now. If we try to separate it, it could kill me. I'm the only one who can control it." Max looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. He didn't want to think about the consequences of failure, but he knew that whatever they were about to face, it was going to be dangerous, not just for Tessa, but for everyone in the galaxy. Suddenly, a noise cut through the tense silence. Footsteps, heavy ones. Max's instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed Tessa's arm and pulled her toward the far corner of the room. "They're here," he muttered. Tessa's breathing became shallow, her hand gripping his arm tightly. She was scared. He could feel it in the way her fingers dug into his skin, but she was trying to stay calm, trying to keep her fear in check. Max couldn't help but feel a surge of respect for her. She was brave, even in the face of certain danger. "Stay quiet," Max whispered, crouching down behind a large crate. Tessa followed his lead, her body tense with anticipation. Max peered around the corner of the crate, his eyes scanning the darkened hallway. He could see them now, 3 figures, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. They were part of the faction Tessa had warned him about, the ones who wanted the artifact for themselves. The men moved with purpose, their weapons drawn and ready. They weren't taking any chances. Max's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. His mind raced. He could take them out, he was good enough for that. But that would only delay the inevitable. They were here for Tessa, and they wouldn't stop until they had her. Tessa looked up at him, her eyes pleading. "They won't stop until they have me. You don't understand. They'll destroy everything to get what they want." Max nodded, his gaze hardening. He understood that better than she thought. "We need to make a plan," Max said quietly, "but we don't have much time." Tessa's face was filled with anguish, but she nodded. "I don't know how much longer I can keep it under control. The artifact, it's starting to react. I can feel it." Max's mind raced. They didn't have time to waste. They needed to move quickly to get somewhere safe before these men found them. But how could they escape with Tessa's power threatening to break loose? "All right," Max said, his voice steady. "We'll get through this. But we need to get to the lower docks, away from the main security. I know a way." Without waiting for a response, he pulled Tessa toward the emergency exit at the back of the maintenance bay. The footsteps of their pursuers were growing louder. They had to move fast or they would be caught. Max led Tessa through the narrow corridors, the sounds of pursuit growing more frantic behind them. But as they turned a corner, they came face to face with another group of soldiers, their weapons trained on them. Max's heart pounded in his chest, but he didn't hesitate. With a swift motion, he drew his weapon and fired. The first soldier dropped to the ground, his weapon clattering on the metal floor. Tessa's eyes widened in shock as Max quickly disabled the other 2, his movements fast and precise. But as the last soldier fell, he turned to Tessa, his face filled with urgency. "We need to keep moving," Max said. "Now." Tessa nodded, her body shaking, but she stayed close as they continued down the corridor. Max's mind was racing, but one thing was clear. The deeper they went into the station, the harder it would be to get out. The artifact was waking up, and whatever was coming next, they needed to be ready for it. Max didn't have much time to think. The station was a maze of metal corridors, dark alleys, and twisting pathways, but every step they took seemed to lead them deeper into the danger closing in on them. His mind was racing, but he pushed the thoughts aside. There was no time for doubt. His focus was on one thing now, getting Tessa to safety. They moved quickly, Tessa staying close behind him, her hand gripping his jacket tightly as if afraid to lose him in the chaos. Every footstep, every sound seemed to echo through the halls, warning them that they were being hunted. But Max had seen worse. He'd been in worse situations before, and he always managed to survive. This time, though, it was different. It wasn't just about his own survival anymore. He had Tessa to protect, and the stakes were higher than ever. Max glanced over his shoulder. Tessa's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, but there was something else too, something he hadn't noticed before. A flicker of something darker in her eyes. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but it made him uneasy. They reached a quiet hallway, far from the chaos of the station's main corridors. It was a dead end, or so it seemed. There were no guards here, no signs of anyone following them yet. Max stopped and turned to Tessa. She was still holding his jacket, but her grip was tighter now. Her breath came faster, more erratic. "We need to talk," Max said, his voice steady but full of urgency. "Before we move again, you need to tell me everything. What's really going on? Why are they after you, and what is this artifact you're carrying?" Tessa's eyes flickered with something, guilt maybe. She hesitated for a long moment before answering. "I told you the truth," she said quietly. "The artifact is part of my people's history. We were once a powerful civilization, but we destroyed ourselves. The artifact is all that's left of us." Max's brow furrowed. "I get that. But I'm starting to think there's more to this than you're letting on." Tessa's face hardened. "What do you mean?" Max could see the change in her eyes. The vulnerability he had seen earlier was gone, replaced by something colder, more calculating. He didn't like it. Something was wrong. "I'm starting to wonder if you're being honest with me," Max said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just the artifact I'm worried about, it's you. You're hiding something, and I don't know what it is. But I'm not going to blindly follow you if I don't know the full truth." Tessa's face twitched, a flash of anger crossing her features before she quickly masked it. She stepped back, her eyes narrowing. "You think I'm lying to you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "I'm doing everything I can to protect you, to protect all of us. You think I want this? You think I want to be chased across the galaxy, hunted like an animal?" Max didn't back down. "I don't know what you want anymore. You've been telling me one thing, but I'm starting to think you're hiding something much bigger." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, thick with unspoken tension. Then, with a sharp motion, Tessa turned her back on him. "I didn't ask for your help," she muttered, more to herself than to him. "I didn't ask you to come here. You don't understand what it's like to carry this burden." Max's stomach twisted. Something didn't add up. The artifact, the strange power it contained, and the way Tessa had reacted when he asked her to explain it all. It was as if she wasn't just hiding the truth, she was avoiding it. "Then why did you trust me?" Max asked, his voice softer now, though the suspicion in his eyes didn't fade. Tessa turned around slowly, her eyes now filled with a mixture of regret and determination. "Because you're the only one I can trust," she said quietly. "And now I need you to understand. I didn't come here for help. I came here because I need to end this, and you're the only one who can help me do that." Max felt a pang in his chest. The confusion that had been swirling in his mind seemed to grow, but there was one thing he knew for sure. Tessa wasn't lying, at least not entirely. She wasn't hiding everything out of malice. There was something deeper, something personal, something she wasn't ready to share. He stepped closer to her, trying to read her face. "Then tell me, what do you really want from me?" Tessa's eyes dropped to the floor, as if the weight of her thoughts was too heavy to bear. She took a deep breath and looked up at him, her eyes filled with an emotion Max couldn't quite place. "The artifact isn't just a weapon. It's the key to unlocking something much bigger. It's not just for me or my people. If I can unlock its full power, it could change everything. But that's what they're after. The faction hunting us, they know what it can do. Max's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about power, the kind of power that could rewrite the very fabric of the galaxy. So, what's the plan? How do we stop them? Tessa's eyes flickered with uncertainty. She stepped away from him, turning her back again. I don't know if we can stop them, she whispered. I don't even know if we should. Max's blood ran cold. What do you mean? I've been carrying the artifact for so long, she said, her voice trembling. And the more I try to resist it, the stronger it gets. It's starting to change me. It's already begun. I can feel it inside me waking up. And I'm afraid that if I unlock its full power, I won't be able to control it. I might lose myself. Max's mind was racing. He thought he understood the stakes, but this was something else entirely. Tessa wasn't just scared of the faction after her, she was scared of herself. I don't think I can stop it, Tessa whispered, her voice breaking. And I don't know if I want to. Max reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to ground her to make her understand. We'll figure it out, but you don't have to do this alone. I'm with you. Tessa shook her head. You don't get it. You don't understand the power it holds. The power that's inside me. Max was silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. Everything had changed. What had started as a mission to help an alien girl had turned into something much more complicated, something that could change the galaxy itself. And Tessa, the one person he was trying to protect, might be the greatest threat of all, but one thing was certain. Max wasn't walking away now. He had come too far, and Tessa had trusted him when no one else had. I'll help you, Max said, his voice steady. But you need to trust me too. Tessa looked up at him, her eyes full of fear, but also something else, hope. She nodded slowly, as if accepting the weight of what lay ahead. I'll trust you, she said softly. But you need to understand, Max, the hardest part is still to come. Max didn't know what was waiting for them, but he knew one thing. They couldn't stop now. Whatever the artifact was, whatever power it held, they were in this together. Max couldn't shake the feeling that everything was slipping out of his control. It wasn't just the danger from the faction closing in on them. It was Tessa. The girl who had come to him for help was now a walking time bomb, carrying an artifact whose power could shatter entire star systems. And with every passing minute, he could see it in her eyes. The artifact was slowly claiming her. They had found temporary shelter in one of the lower levels of the station, an abandoned storage bay that had been left untouched for years. The place was quiet, too quiet, but Max didn't trust the silence. He knew that the faction was still out there, hunting them, waiting for the right moment to strike. They couldn't afford to stay in one place for too long. Tessa sat on the floor, her legs drawn up to her chest, her hands resting on her knees. She had been quiet since their conversation earlier, her mind obviously preoccupied with the thoughts she hadn't shared with him. Max knew she was struggling, he could see it in her face, but he wasn't sure how to help her anymore. The power inside her was growing, he could feel it. It was the kind of power that called to you, urged you to use it, to embrace it, even if it meant losing yourself in the process. He had seen people fall to that kind of temptation before, people who thought they could control something too dangerous for anyone to handle. Max sat across from her, leaning against a stack of crates. We don't have much time, he said softly. They'll be here soon. We need to make a decision. What happens next? Tessa's eyes flicked up to meet his, and for a moment she seemed lost, as though she didn't even know who she was anymore. The artifact was changing her, warping her thoughts. He could see it, and it scared him more than anything. I don't know what to do anymore, she whispered. I don't know if I can stop it. The power, it's too much. I can feel it inside me, waking up every time I think about it. Max took a deep breath. He had expected this. He had known that the deeper they got into this mission, the harder it would be to keep control. But the truth was, they were running out of options. If they didn't act soon, the faction would find them. And if Tessa's power fully awakened, nothing would be able to stop her or them. We don't have to do it alone, Max said, his voice steady. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. Tessa shook her head, a sad smile crossing her face. I don't know if there's anyone who can help. It's not just about control anymore. It's about what happens if I let it out. If I unlock the artifact's full power, I don't know what I'll become. Max's heart sank. He could see the fear in her eyes. She was afraid of herself, afraid of what the artifact might turn her into. But there was something else in her gaze too, a determination. She was ready to make a choice, even if it meant sacrificing everything. We can stop this, Max said, but we need to destroy the artifact. We can't let anyone else get their hands on it, and we can't let you become something you can't control. Tessa's eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed to recoil from his words. Destroy it. You don't understand. The artifact is all that's left of my people. If I destroy it, everything they fought for, everything they believed in, it will be gone. I can't do that. Max felt a pang in his chest. He knew how much the artifact meant to her. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of her entire civilization, a civilization that had destroyed itself in the pursuit of power. But he also knew that if they didn't act now, the entire galaxy could be at risk. I understand more than you think, Max said quietly. I've seen what happens when power like that falls into the wrong hands. You said it yourself. This thing can destroy worlds. It's not just about your people, it's about everyone. We have to make a choice, Tessa. Tessa looked away, her face clouded with emotion. She was torn. She didn't want to destroy the artifact, but she didn't want to let it destroy her either. Max could see the struggle playing out behind her eyes, and he felt helpless to ease her pain. If we destroy it, Max said, we're choosing a future. A future where no one has to suffer under its power. But if we don't, if we keep it alive, it'll destroy everything. Not just your people, but the entire galaxy. Your people were right about one thing: the artifact is a weapon. And if it's not controlled, it will tear the universe apart. Tessa's voice was shaky when she spoke again. I don't know if I'm strong enough to let it go. Max stood and moved closer to her. He didn't touch her, but he was close enough to feel the intensity of her emotions. You are, I've seen it in you. You're stronger than you realize. For a long moment they were silent, the weight of the decision hanging between them. Then finally Tessa spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know what's going to happen if I destroy it. But I know one thing: I can't let it control me. I won't let it. Max's heart pounded in his chest. It wasn't a decision he had expected, but it was the one he had been hoping for. Tessa was choosing to take control of her own fate, to break free from the artifact's grip. We'll do it together, Max said, his voice firm. You don't have to do this alone. We'll find a way to destroy it, and we'll stop the faction before they can get their hands on it. Tessa looked up at him, and for the first time in what felt like forever, a sense of peace washed over her face. She wasn't alone anymore. She had someone she could trust, and together they would make sure the artifact's power would never fall into the wrong hands. We don't have much time, Max said, his voice urgent once more. The faction will be here soon, and they'll stop at nothing to get what they want. We need to move now. Tessa nodded, standing slowly. She seemed more resolute now, the fear that had once gripped her replaced with a quiet determination. Max didn't know what was going to happen next, but one thing was certain: they were in this together, no matter the cost. They quickly gathered what little gear they had: Max's sidearm, a few supplies, and the makeshift map he had made of the station. They had a plan, but there was no guarantee it would work. Max led the way, his hand on the sidearm at his waist, his eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. He could hear the distant sounds of footsteps, the chatter of guards in the distance. The faction was getting closer, and they had no time to waste. As they moved through the corridors, Tessa stayed close, her steps measured and quiet. She was ready now, ready to do what needed to be done. They reached the heart of the station, the control room where all the power to the station was housed. It was a risk, but Max knew it was the only place where they could destroy the artifact. If they could get to the power core and overload it, they could take out the artifact with it. They had no backup, no allies to call on. Just the two of them facing the most dangerous decision they would ever have to make. Max glanced at Tessa one last time. You ready? Tessa's eyes met his, and for the first time there was no hesitation, no fear, just the quiet determination that Max had come to respect. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady. Together they stepped into the control room, ready to face whatever came next. The final choice was in their hands.